So, now the handout is good passed down for Bill and David too. So, wanted to kind of go over the current status of the Jeffco Express service and then cover some potential options. We haven't gone real in depth on any of these. Wanted to hear kind of what the council's feedback was and kind of what you wanted us to pursue. So the as has been announced, the service will stop at the end of the year. The bus service was paid for by a federal grant with a 50% local match. Oates, who is the organization that has been managing and running Jeffco Express for several years now, did not apply for a new federal grant, and the deadline has passed. So there is no way to get that federal funding to run the service after the end of the year. So it is definitely going away. Now that only applies to the service that ran within Arnold. There will still be the cross county routes, which go as it says, as the name says, across the county, through all the cities. It's just those only make a limited number of stops in each city, whereas the Jeffco Express went through multiple stops just in Arnold. But there will still be the cross county routes, will still be available and running as they are now, going from city to city throughout the county. And another thing I just wanted to clear up, as far as I know, to the best of my knowledge, it was mentioned that it was stated in one of the meetings that other cities have a bus service like Jeffco Express, and I don't believe that's true. I think they're confusing the cross-county route. We were the only city that had in the county, in Jefferson County, that had a bus route that went just within the city, and never left it. So I think people were confusing the cross-county route, which has a limited number of stops in each city. So we spent a little bit of time looking into some possible alternatives. The first one that kind of stood out to me was Oaks still provides what's, I guess, their normal service and the service they provided before they got involved with Jeffco Express, and that is rides for anyone age 16 and over. You just need to call them 48 hours in advance to schedule a ride, and there's no charge or fee for that. So that covers, I think, not everybody who rode the bus, but I think a large portion, and most of the phone calls I've received have been from senior citizens who don't have a car and can't drive anymore. Now obviously if you're under 60, that doesn't work for you, and the 48-hour advance notice probably would make it the service not viable if you were trying to take it to a job every day. But it is an existing service. It's been around for quite a while. Certainly there is no charge or fee, like I said, and it's certainly something that we could advertise a lot more, so people were aware of the service as an alternative once the bus goes away. The Jefferson Franklin Community Action Corporation has what they call Easy Mode Transportation. It's free rides for essential services for residents of the two counties, that being Jefferson and Franklin. The rides have to be to locations that are within the two counties. The only exception to that is for medical appointments. You can get a ride through this service to the St. Louis County, St. Louis City area for medical. Since so many of the providers are up in that area. It is free, but you have to qualify. Your income has to be under 200% of the poverty level. The Disability Resource Association also provides free rides for medical appointments and what they describe as essential shopping needs. There wasn't a ton of detail on their website, so I can't say for sure what all that entails. The rides are for those who are, they said, who are aged and have a disability and who do not have other transportation options. Again, wasn't a lot of information available on what the age cutoff is, it just said aged. And then as far as the disability, if that's something that there needs to be some kind of documentation on or something like that. But another potential resource there. And again, those are, if you qualify, those are free. And then the final kind of option is more of a private sector. Both Uber and Lyft have voucher or voucher type programs where if the if council so desired, the city might be able to pay for vouchers that that residents could use to take those services. I don't really ever use those, so I don't really know what an Uber or Lyft ride would cost. So I don't really know what the cost would be. But it is something that that we could look into. Again, it has a cost, but it doesn't have really any other restrictions like some of the other programs do and who can qualify. So that's kind of what I have for you tonight. So at this point, I was kind of looking for your feedback of how much more do you want us to do this, given these options? Are there particular options you want more information on? You want, where do you want us to go from here? It's kind of what I'm looking for. So with that, I'll answer any questions and certainly want to hear your feedback.
Yes, sir. So thank you for all this detail and information. I'm surprised at the additional amount of them. I would like to know a little bit more about the Uber and Lyft voucher program. I personally experienced that during my tenure working for the hospital systems at SSM and BJC. And they actually stopped some local bus services and began using some voucher system. I know there were some grants out there as well. But I'd be curious to know how much the vouchers cost, if it's a discounted rate or, I think that's something that maybe we could look at as potentially something we should do. I mean, there's a lot of resources here that maybe weren't being utilized in the past. So.
If you don't know about it, Uber, I mean, it's, we got around Europe quite a bit with that when we were away. But it depends on what time of day, where you're going, I mean, what the density of the ridership is, and that's going to affect the price. I want to find out kind of what Rod's saying, how much would it cost? Is there a discounted rate, or is there a flat rate that you're interested in finding out? I've never used Lyft, I've only used Uber.
It's the same. I mean, during the day, it's typically less expensive if it's not the peak times.
I think it doubles and triples.
Yeah, Mayor, I have a boy, well, he's not a boy, he's a man, he's 52 years old, that lives next door to me. He's retarded. He goes to the gym 4 times a week. So far, it's been working pretty good for him. And his mom come over the other day and said, look, you know what? I said, "Watch, home. If you guys don't do something with this bus service, you're gonna have to take him at 10 o'clock every day to the recreational building, and then I'll go pick him up at 3:30. I said, well, what do you mean? Well, you're a council person. You can do that. So anyway, I would like us to solve this problem, because that ain't the only one I've had. I've had 4 or 5 of the older people that don't have a car, they don't have nothing. Trying to get to the store, trying to get to the doctor's office, and it's all different times these people's got. So I really hope Brian and Mary look into this and try to dig up something that we can kind of accommodate these people.
Okay, something that isn't really on here, and I don't know if it's still an option, I guess that's what I was gonna ask, because I know some residents brought it up. So since the, federal grant has passed, and this was Oates that was running it, right, too? Yeah. So, if, let's say if we decide, even if we would have decided to fund the bus since they're not getting grants or anything, is that even available now? You know, even if we would fund, you know, let's say on a weird, or you know, just like a higher level, if we would fund the whole thing, would they start it back up after the end of the year? Is that even, you know, because people have brought up, is that even a possibility? What does Oates say? Or have you talked to them about that?
I haven't talked to them I have talked to them, mostly about alternatives.
Okay.
And other services they provide. I did talk to a little bit, they're the ones that told me about the federal grant, that there was no way, that the cycle had already passed.
Right.
So I guess my best guess would be it's possible. I think, I don't really know when the next deadline would be, when they could get federal funding again, and when it could restart. I think it's probably something though that we would want to at least give them a heads up about, because I don't know what they will, do with the buses.
Right. That's what I was wondering.
And I don't know if they'll sell them off and decommission them, or
Right.
they'll repurpose them.
So I guess that's where I was leading up to. So if, you know, let's say if we would fully fund, like some people have asked us to do, if we fully funded, not saying we're gonna do that, but if we fully funded that, you know, make up for whatever the feds were paying, I don't know whether it's, I mean, we've heard things of 50,000 or, right, you know, 55,000 a year. So let's say in that scenario, if they did go that far, is Oates even still willing to run the service if we fully funded? That's kind of what I was wondering.
I'll have
Maybe
to
find out,
I'll have
I'll
to
find
ask
out
them
about
that
that,
question.
because where I would go with that, then, to me, with that kind of money, and I know we were talking about ridership is, you know, was so low at 12 people, so to me, if we would even think about going that way with that kind of money, then my suggestion would have been that we put it to a vote of the people, because that's a lot of money for just a few people, and I have no problem with doing that if that's what the people want to do. I mean, it's their money, it's not my money. So I mean, if they want us to, you know, be the Arnold bus line, for 12, 15 people a day, then, you know, it's their money. So that's the only reason I brought that up, to see if they even, because somebody floated it there, so I just thought, that wasn't on here, so I think we should at least look at it as an option. Is it even possible, so we can tell people, well guys, that isn't even an option anymore, because Oates not willing, because they want to get out of the bus part of it on the Arnold, so that's just what I was thinking.
Yeah, so I think the 50% match, the last number I remember, it was around $40,000, so I think it'd be about
it'd be almost
80 or so to run the whole thing.
Yeah.
That's per month.
I had
that's a year.
a very
Yeah.
positive conversation with Oates, but I didn't really press them a whole lot.
Mhm.
I don't really know what their feelings are on the service. They certainly didn't approach us,
Right.
and they never asked us to enter into a new contract.
That's what you were saying, so.
Right.
Mhm.
At the same time, they did know that it was something that had always been, received a lot of scrutiny here at the city, and there was, 1 year where we almost pulled the plug.
Mhm.
So I don't know if they just, assumed, that we wouldn't wanna restart it, cause
Right.
they had been working off COVID money, so they hadn't needed us, for the 50% match for several years, so I think the last contract we had was maybe 21,
Right.
around there.
Okay.
So I don't know if they just assumed we wouldn't be interested. I don't know if it's something that they.
I think that's something we should look at,
They-
that
they
just
did-
float
he
it
did-
to them, are you interested if we fully fund it, and then it would be up to the people.
He did say that the ridership had not really recovered since
Mhm.
COVID, and that it was very low.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I'm
About
saying.
he said about 400 rides a month, but a ride is just one way.
Right.
So if you're taking a round trip, you gotta cut that in half, and then if you're getting on and off multiple stops, then you cut that even further down.
Yeah.
So it's not a lot of people
Yeah.
each day potentially who are riding it.
Those people are important, but at the same time, money talks, and, if the people wanna spend that kind of money, then it would be up to them, but, like you say, that's the reason I brought it, because I didn't even know if that was a viable option, but I think we should.
I can talk to them, sure.
Yeah, thank you.
Right. So it seems my way of thinking is that folks kind of didn't want to even go back
tried to be, I don't wanna put words in her mouth.
Okay.
So, but they did not, they never asked me for a meeting, they never sent us a new contract. They never asked to come, you know, if you remember, they've done presentations here before you in the past. They never asked for that opportunity. You know, I really didn't know, anything about it until they sent us a letter, announcing that it was gonna end at the end of the year. And I think we got that letter in like September, that was August or September, that was the first time that I had heard of it. Hadn't really had any contact with them in several years, again, because they had really been operating with COVID money for the local match and really hadn't needed us. So I don't really know what their thinking was. I don't know if they didn't think it was worth running, given how low the ridership was. I didn't know if they didn't just assume we wouldn't be interested. I don't really know. I can certainly try to have that conversation with them.
That just appears to me they didn't have much interest in it.
Anything else? Well, we're here, Brian.
Yes.
Let's go ahead and get into the.
Yeah.
Into the procedure, and see where that's at.
Okay.
You know, one of the things I had noticed, so, you know, I don't recall, you know, some of these services that have been out there, you know, where people are buying, you know, and maybe we can do something to help, you know, possibly get that word out, you know, through our mechanism. Anyway, it's pretty,
Okay.
I had talked to Foundry about 2 months ago on a different subject, but some of this came up. Foundry's got a list of different services for people who ride for medical purposes within their community. All they gotta do is call them and they'll get them a list.
Yeah, there's a list online, if you go, I forget what state agency it was, but they have a website they direct you to. And that's where I found some of these options, but there's also, like private pay options on there. There was some options that weren't really options, like there was a couple of the life flight were listed as options. There was a limousine, I saw a limousine service was listed on there, so it was a kind of, and then there was some like the EMS, like there's a couple ambulance companies. Well, you know, you're not gonna be using those to go to the grocery store or whatever. So there was some useful information on that list, and I did go through it, but there was a lot of stuff on there that I think just was not helpful.
We'll have number 2, unregulated gaming machines, Dave, what could you speak about?
Thank you, Mayor. If you recall at your August work session meeting, you discussed unregulated gaming machines, what they were, what some of the adverse impacts that they might have on the community, and the fact that their legal status well, it's a little confusing for some people. They are considered legal today, and therefore it's something that could be difficult to prohibit, but we can regulate. And that was the approach that was discussed at that work session. I did sort of a 50,000-foot explanation of what we were suggesting for you to consider, but then you asked me to come back with the actual ordinance language, and that's what we have for you today. In the meantime, we actually shared a draft with the largest operator of these gaming machines in St. Louis area anyways, Torch Electronics, just to see what they had to say about our draft. And while they didn't respond directly to the draft, they presented their own version, which their version basically was they'll pay us a few dollars and we don't regulate them. So what's before you does not reflect any suggestions on their part. It's what you discussed at your August meeting. So, and I'm gonna go through this ordinance. I'm not gonna read every word. I'm gonna kind of go over what each section is. First thing we have is a definition of what an unregulated gaming machine is. And it's basically, it's not a slot machine, it's a no chance game. This is language that we found online for, used in other states to define what these machines are. And then we go on to say that this ordinance doesn't authorize actual gambling devices, slot machines. This only applies to these unregulated gaming machines. The next section is that it requires that the operators and the location with the machines get an annual license from the city. And that they have to comply with all city codes. And it applies if any machine that they want to display, keep, or maintain for public patronage in the city is illegal, basically. The next section speaks to some licensing issues. So in order to have between 3 and 20 machines, you would also have to have a liquor by the drink license at your location. And what that does is basically say, if you have that between 3 and 20, you have to be a bar or a restaurant. And the thinking behind that is a bar and restaurant is a place where people go, hang out for a while, there's plenty of parking, and we think that's a reasonable number. The cutoff at 20 is because previously you defined an arcade, a video arcade, as having more than 20 machines. So we thought that was the right number to place on here. And then for below 3, 1 or 2 machines, that could potentially still be at a gas station where you tend to see these places, these machines rather. And the reason 1 or 2 at a gas station as opposed to more than that is gas stations aren't designed to have people sitting there all day long taking up parking spaces. It's for people to come and get gas, get convenience goods, get beer, snacks, sodas, those things, and leave. And folks using these machines tend to park themselves there for some time when they play. Let's see. We also say that if you have more than 20, as I said, it has to be in an arcade. And we're also suggesting that we create a new use called an unregulated gaming parlor. That's a trend that you're seeing across the country where it's kind of like you'll see in a strip center, a space with maybe 50 machines, 40 machines. People go out, hang out, play those games, but we would want that to be in the right location. So that's why we created a particular use. Planning Commission would have to determine what the appropriate location might be. And we'll get to a few more details on that in just a second. No licenses will be issued if the operator, or the applicant rather, has any obligations to the city, any unpaid bills and so forth, any other licenses that haven't been renewed. And then the next section speaks to the process for getting their license. I'm not going to go into detail, but it's very similar to the business licensing process. And then we came up with a number of standards that any operator and location would have to have in place. And we did talk about this at the August work session. First would be that both the operator, that's the company that provides the machine, and the location would be jointly and severally responsible for all these regulations being upheld. So should they not uphold the regulations, we could take both of them to court essentially. Okay. You have to be 21 years or older to play, and in locations where there are people under the age of 21 in the building, the machines would have to be segregated by, like, say, a velvet rope, something of that nature, and be within the sight distance of somebody over 21 that works for the company or works for the location, so they can make sure that minors aren't playing the game. There has to be somebody over 21 working there at all hours, and that person has to be able to see not only the machines, but if there's limited view of the machines, they have to be able to see into the entrance as well. There would have to be signage at the machines as well as any ATMs that direct people to, like, Gamblers Anonymous and things of that nature. And then we would have the fee schedule, and this is again something we discussed. The establishment, the bar, the gas station, wherever, they would pay a $500 flat fee plus $250 per machine that's operated or set up for operation. And then the operator, the third-party company that owns the machine, they would pay a flat $2,000 per location. And again, these are numbers that you discussed at the August meeting. I'm not going to go through the details of this, but this is the procedure should any of the regulations be violated. They could get their license suspended and potentially revoked. There is an appeal process should that happen. And then the next section speaks to what's exempt from this article. We already spoke to actual gaming devices that are already regulated, but this does not apply to what we call amusement vending devices, video games, pinball machines. This does not apply to that at all. And that also that if there are other regulations that might apply to a business, this doesn't give them a buy in any of those other regulations. They still have to abide by other city rules and regulations. So that's it for the first ordinance. The second ordinance addresses the section of the code that Tammy is probably most familiar with, and that's actually where we have business licenses. And what this basically does is cross-reference. So if somebody goes into the business license section, they'll know that the licensing for these machines are contained in a different section of the code. This is just how we do it for fireworks, same process. And then the last section of the code that would have to be amended would be the zoning ordinance. I spoke to that a bit ago. So the first thing, we would create a new use, as I said, a unregulated gaming parlor. That's when they have 20 or more machines, potentially where it could be, and this still has to go to planning commission. Perhaps they would be allowed as conditional uses in the C2, C3, and then by reference the C4. But then we would have particular regulations that apply, namely that they have to get a CUP. It has to address issues of parking, loading, and circulation, and that parking requirement would be the same ratio as that for commercial service facilities or retail sales. It would only allow for one of these parlors in any shopping center or building, and then additionally there would be a 1,000-foot proximity requirement that a parlor couldn't be within 1,000 feet of a church, a school, a residential use, or any other unregulated gaming parlor, whether they're inside the city or outside the city. And that measure is a straight line from entrance to entrance of the buildings. And then we have some suggested hours of operation. That would be a limitation. They could certainly be open fewer hours than that, but that would be the maximum hours. And that's everything that we have drafted. I know I went through that very quickly, but we did talk about this before, but I'd be happy to answer any questions if you'd like me to proceed. The first step is I would have to go to planning and zoning with the zoning changes, and once they did that, we bring everything to you all together.
Has any of this been shared with the partner cities here in Jefferson County?
Yes, that was good. We did talk about that at the other meeting. There was, what's the official name for that group, Brian? Is it Jefferson County Municipal League? We had a couple of meetings with the cities, and we presented this draft ordinance in some detail. Bob and Ryan were there as well as a number of council members, and it seemed like it was received in a positive way.
Well, we were all talking about doing the same thing.
Yeah.
None of the other cities have indicated a desire to do anything other than what we presented. We've kind of taken the lead with it.
They might like to see us go first. But,
Yes.
Yes, they would. Thank you, Bob.
So, we regulate pinball machines now, or we license.
This doesn't apply to pinball machines, but we do.
Do we do that now?
Yeah, we do that already, yes.
Okay.
Tammy does a license for those, yeah.
Yeah.
I think all vending machines, game machines, they're defined, yeah.
Yeah. Now, I don't know if, Marcus Steelers, I think they just got video machines.
Yeah, they have, last time we went there, they had fewer than 20 video game machines.
Okay, but they're not like any.
I haven't been in that theater in a number of months, but last time I was there, it was just kids' games, basically.
Arcade game.
Arcade games, thank you.
All right. I like to play 7.
Yes, adults are allowed.
I mean, the biggest immediate impact is this, you've probably seen, the gas stations that have more than 2. So there'll have to be a reduction, in those numbers. So I don't know how much pushback we'll get on that, but I think that'll be the biggest immediate impact.
In addition to the just general concern about gaming, and the impact it has on our community, the facilities where these machines are located are not designed to handle them from a public safety standpoint. The parking and the pedestrian routes are not designed for that kind of use. And these machines have infiltrated those locations in numbers that don't provide the appropriate public safety. So that's the idea behind this. They are actually illegal in at least one county.
So far.
Well, and at this point too, I mean, without some clarification, at least at municipal level, I mean, today, you know, 10-year-olds can go up to a gas station and play, and there's nothing in place that would prevent it.
Even from the state, maybe that's all.
The name unregulated is because they're unregulated, yeah. And if you recall at that August meeting, I did show you pictures from the state of Missouri, not here, of young children playing those games in other cities. And that's, apparently there's an ongoing lawsuit over that right now.
Cool. Thank you.
Council, have any other questions? Okay, I say we, go ahead and have, move forward on this with
We'll go through P and Z.
Yeah. So just as a, give you a time frame, I think I'm gonna, at the next, or at a future meeting, I'm gonna give them the same presentation that I gave you at the work session, so they can understand what the machines are, and then come to a following meeting with the legislation.
Can we let our, other county cities, let them know what steps we're taking? I know Bob was up to it.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, and let them know that we're actually moving forward.
I think you got it, even though Jefferson County, come next week, and, I think it's gonna be next week.
I suspect Tony's gonna let them know too.
That's what takes time.
Might be something we will.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else?
No?
Got one thing, Mayor. I hope we can get something figured out on this bus thing. I really do.
We got a little time, I think this, we got another couple of months, I think, we end up, this number,
Yeah.
so we got some.
Okay, cool.
I think,
Yeah, I think we need to take care of the others.
I agree. Anybody else? Okay, meeting's adjourned.
Thank you.